In this video, we'll discuss viruses. A virus is a form of malware that installs and runs without user consent or through trickery, or maybe a combination of both, by tricking a user to install software that looks legitimate but unleashes a virus in the background. Viruses normally replicate themselves by attaching to data files, scripts, executable program files, or even disk sectors in some cases. The way that viruses get transmitted is often through email file attachments that people open, or in some cases through files that people download from the internet. The timing of the virus is such that it might be executed immediately upon infection, or in some cases it might wait for a specific date of some significance or some kind of condition to be met on the machine. So, this type of virus that waits for a date or condition to be met is called a logic bomb. In the 1990s, this is exactly what the Michelangelo virus was about. It waited until March 6th in the early 90s before it would execute. Back in the early 90s, Michelangelo was transmitted through infected floppy disks, which these days can be done through infected USB drives with other forms of malware or infected file downloads from the internet. The idea with the Michelangelo virus was that it was a boot sector infecting virus, so when the OS booted, it was resident in memory and was supposedly, on Michelangelo's birthday, supposed to wipe out the hard disk by overwriting it with random characters. But in the end, on March 6th of 1992, very few computers were actually affected by the Michelangelo virus compared to the ominous predictions. A macro virus is embedded in the macro language code for a specific application. For example, a Microsoft Word macro virus could trigger when a user opens an infected document that would trigger ransomware to encrypt their files. Of course, the user would then have to pay a ransom to potentially receive a decryption key. So one thing that we could do is disallow the auto running of macros, such as when files are opened. We could allow only the use of trusted and digitally signed macros, or if we don't use macros at all, we're probably better off completely disabling it to reduce our attack surface. Consider the example of macro security here in Microsoft Excel. I'm going to go to the File menu where I'm going to go all the way down to Options. On the left, I'll then click on Trust Center, and then on the right, I'll click the Trust Center Settings button. Here on the left, you can see that macro settings are selected. So on the right, it's currently set to disable all macros with a notification. But there are other options, such as disabling all macros without a notification, disabling all macros except those that are digitally signed and, of course, trusted, or we could enable all macros, which is definitely not recommended. And again, if your users don't even use macros, you might completely disable it in this specific application. Now, here in Microsoft Excel, over on the left, we've also got trusted locations. In other words, locations on the network from which we are allowed to open files. So files in other folders might not be trusted and might prompt us with a warning message. There are countless virus examples, including 2009's Stuxnet virus. This one damaged uranium enrichment equipment in Iran, and it was propagated as a worm, so it was self-propagating over a network. 2009 also saw the Conficker virus, which was a botnet infector. A botnet, of course, is a group of computers under single malicious user control. And of course, now in 2016, we keep hearing about occurrences of ransomware. So, in various ways, this malware is triggered, such as opening an infected document or clicking a link. And what happens is it could infect files by encrypting them and requiring a ransom payment before potentially providing a decryption key. In this video, we talked about viruses.